Welcome everybody to the Tushaar show. I'm pleased to be back, and it's been a while. The Tushaar show is sponsored by the Tushaar Times newspaper, which you can check out on Instagram, and it is officially broadcasted by the Tushaar Broadcasting Company. Both are self-made, and it's for a bit of fun. And today we're with a special guest whose name is Christian. Christian, say hi. Christian,
Yes,
can you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Say hi. Say hi to the guest.
Hi, yeah, my name is Christian
Yes.
Modjaiso, and I'm super excited to talk with Tushaar and to be on the Tushaar show.
Woohoo! I am super excited to get Christian on. Christian has been a very special guest, and I'm going to narrate the reasons for it. But before that, I just want to mention he's from a small town. Is it a small town? Is it a medium sized town?
Small
Is it a
town.
city? It's a small town called Bunia. Am I right?
Yep.
And I'm going to let the uh, listeners guess where this town could be in which part of the world, and we are going to reveal the answer at the end of the show.
Nice.
Keeping them in suspense. Yep. So you're from Bunia, and you've got me. I mean, your email was a real surprise for me, and it was what I would say like either a spark or a saving grace. But I'd like to say it was a spark to start again. In the sense, for for a brief for a brief while, around 2 months, more than 2 months actually. It's been 2 months since I published my last episode, but for a while now, I was questioning myself on why I am podcasting. Because what I found very difficult to accept was that my contemporaries, or people going in school with me or college with me, didn't really see podcasting as uh, through the perspective through which I used to see it. And that troubled me so much, so that I felt like quitting it, because it wasn't considered, or people didn't take out, I felt people didn't take out the time to hear it. So that meant that they didn't really value podcasting so much. And that really messed with my psyche on podcasting. And I continued podcasting despite all of that, but it hit the peak when uh, I felt that the, I mean, it sounds silly, but this show is about being honest with my listeners. But that's why I'm saying everything pretty honestly. That the girl that I liked a lot in college, I felt that she didn't really care about my podcast, and there is no real proof for something like that. But because she rejected me, I thought that it must be because of the fact that there must be something within me that is not agreeing with her, or I must not be enough in some way. And I started looking at that as if that was because of my podcast, or the podcast was the fact that was not good enough. And many thoughts which I don't know how they seem logical at that point, but after time passes it doesn't seem logical anymore. That sort of thing happened. And I don't say that I'm completely over it, but I have realized, and I always knew it, but now I'm acting on the fact that I need to maybe show up for the people who do enjoy the podcasts. And Christian was one of them. He emailed me and he said that he heard my podcast on Core Confidence Life, and then he heard a couple of episodes of the Tushaar show where I was goofing around and trying to add value, and not knowing exactly what I was doing. But he said that he appreciated the effort of being honest and being open with the guests. And he said that he'd like to be a part of this experiment, be a part of this project, be a part of this mission, this podcast, to serve people and to share something valuable with its listeners, with you. So and this was just a day, or just the same day. He emailed me just a day before I decided, let me get back to podcasting. Come on, it's time now to pull up my socks and uh, go ahead, to move forward. Because uh, the success of any podcast or any journey is seen in its breadth and not in its height always. So sometimes if you keep moving forward, the line of the trajectory of that is horizontal, but it may be longer than what you may achieve as the height of something. So moving on will always get you more success. So with that thought in mind, I moved on. I replied to Christian, and there we are. Within 3 days, we have set up this podcast, and there he is speaking from Bunia. And welcome, Christian, once again. Thank you, man. Thank you for emailing me.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm super excited to talk to you.
Yes. Yes, me too. And I just heard a little of your story before the podcast, and uh, it's a blessing that you're going to be speaking here. I'm just telling that beforehand because I know that some magic is going to craft out of you through this podcast, and I'm waiting for that. But I just wanted to narrate my story before we move on to that.
Yeah, great, man. You're providing a
The,
lot of. I mean, you're helping a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of students out there, people who have the same struggles that you're having, and it's exciting
right,
that, right? It's good for them to have somebody they can relate to, somebody who understands their problems, and at the very least, it will help them to see that they are not alone, and that
right,
something can be done, right? They're not the only ones who have difficulties.
right, right, right. And uh, so that's the place from where I was coming from, and that's why I took this 2 month break, and that's why it was a surprise to find someone who heard the podcast, appreciated it, and I'm getting to interview such a person, and who's had a similar journey, who's had his own experiences, and now you're going to help the audience. So, you do you want to start out by narrating your story and how you came to what you want to share with the audience? Maybe a brief story, and also a small picture of Bunia in the start of the podcast. Like, what's your locality like? How was it growing up? Maybe for a few seconds, maybe for 30, 40 seconds, a few minutes, like 1 or 2 minutes explaining your scenario, how you grew up, and what what was your initial story which led to your method, which you call the observational method, and how that
Okay.
helps you. So we can maybe move like that by you giving us a background of your place, your childhood, and what happened, what were the events, in a small summary, so that we
Hmm.
know the context through which we can relate with you. That's the context through which we can relate with you.
All right, I'll try my best. Summarize all the
Yes,
events.
man. Yes. Yes,
O-
yes, yes. Don't
okay.
feel overwhelmed. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just take it at your pace. And if you feel you can drop events, you can drop events. If you feel you can highlight more events, highlight more events. It's your wish. It's your show.
All right. I can do that.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I mean, again, as Tushar mentioned, my name is Christian Modjaiso. So,
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm living in Bunia. I'm not gonna tell you the country, okay? because that's a challenge. I'm not saying the country. But wait, this means I can't share my nationality until the end. Okay. So that's also a mystery.
Yes,
It's
you
up to you to
can't.
guess. Where is this guy from? Anyways, maybe I'll just limit you to a continent, somewhere in Africa, all right? So,
Yes, yes.
um, okay, so somewhere in Africa. Okay.
Somewhere in Africa. And
Now,
you're my first African guest.
yes.
Awesome. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yep. Uh,
Keep going.
so basically, I mean, I had a basically, you could say a good childhood, good parents, parents who really
Mm-hmm.
cared about me. You know, there's a lot of divorces that happen, I hear, but
Mm-hmm.
again, for us, divorce is not in Africa. There's not so much divorce, so I was lucky to
Mm-hmm.
have parents who stuck together, gave me a
Okay.
stable structure. Obviously, as a
Right.
kid, I had, uh, I mean, I didn't have any major catastrophes, but I mean, sometimes my parents would talk to me, let's say harshly, right? Or my dad would criticize me for something, or people around would
Mm-hmm.
criticize me, and I'd feel really bad. Sometimes I'd feel
Right.
really angry, really sad,
Mm-hmm.
or the whole range of emotions. And before I never knew
Mm-hmm.
what to do with that information. So maybe my dad would say
Okay.
something that annoys me, and then I'd have this
Mm-hmm.
anger, but I don't know what to do with the rage. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes I'd hang on to the anger for a long time, but I'd never really
Mm-hmm.
address the root or figure out why I'm angry, let's say. And
Mm-hmm.
so as a result, the anger was never resolved. It was just kept piling up. And this was the same with
Right.
many other emotions I had. I was never given tools
Right.
to handle any of this stuff. So, anyways,
Right.
so this was a lot of what happened in my childhood. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I studied in many countries. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I studied in Uganda. I did a bit of my early
Mm-hmm.
education in Uganda for about 11
Okay.
years around. Then I moved to Kenya, did a
Okay.
bit of my primary school and high school in Kenya as well. And then I
Okay.
traveled to South Africa, where I did the last part
Okay.
of my high school. So
Okay.
my
Okay.
primary and high school, all of it was done in Africa. And
Okay.
then
Okay.
when I did my university, that was my first
Mm-hmm.
time to move to like stay outside of the continent. That's when I went to do university. So I did my
Mm-hmm.
university at a university called a college. In the U.S., undergraduate institutions are called colleges. So at a college called
Yes.
Harvey Mudd
Yes.
College. So
Okay.
I studied at Harvey Mudd College. I studied mathematics. Um,
Okay.
right. So I have a degree in mathematics. So
Okay.
yeah. So this was in Claremont, California.
Okay.
Right. And it's like a very intense school. Uh, it's uh, it's kind of like an MIT type school, right? So that's where imagine if you went around the planet and picked very sharp students, the sharpest students in math and science, and then you got them and
Mm-hmm.
you brought them to one school. Well, that's Harvey Mudd,
Mm-hmm.
right? So every
Okay.
student there, the university I went to, every student there was like a superstar from where they came from,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So when I went there, I felt very foolish compared to other students. It was the first time that I'd ever studied outside of Africa. It was the first time I was in
Mm-hmm.
an environment where I was in the minority. In Africa, almost everybody is black, right? 90% of the population is black skin. Now, I was in
Right. Right.
California, and in California, it was the opposite. I was in the minority,
Right.
right? It's mostly white
Right.
people in California, all right?
Okay.
Mostly,
Okay.
but of course, there's
Okay.
Latinos and black people. So I felt in the minority,
Right.
always felt like I had to
Right.
prove something. I had to kind of represent
Right.
black people, right, and show that we are
Right.
smart, we can think, things like that. So this put too much
Right.
pressure upon me, too much pressure,
Okay.
because
Okay.
whenever I failed, I felt like I'd failed the entire race. So I'd fail a test, instead of it just
Okay.
being, okay, I failed the test, for me it was like, look, I've failed and let black people down everywhere, right? So this was just
Oh.
heavy
Okay.
stuff, okay? And
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
much pressure piled upon me when I was at this college in the US. that
Mm-hmm.
eventually, look, I began to, my life was so much hell, I began to wonder,
Mm-hmm.
why am I living? Right? What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to Google and I
Mm-hmm.
began to research the most effective ways to end things.
Mm-hmm.
So I settled on jumping from the top of a building, right? So, because that would be the best way,
Okay.
jump, die, and end of my misery. So I
Right.
climbed to, I often I'd climb to the top of one of our buildings at Harvey Mudd. I'd climb to the top and look down and fantasize about jumping, right? And there was something that was stopping me, which was fear. It was like, look, what if I jump from this building and don't die? I just break
Right.
bones or become a quadriplegic or something like that. Then my problems would be like
Right.
10,000 times worse, right? So one
Right.
of the things that was holding me back from jumping was the possibility that I might not die and things get worse. Right? But
Right.
that's how low I had descended at this point.
Right.
And right, that man, I was failing on every dimension, man. I was failing emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I was failing physically because
Mm-hmm.
I was putting on a lot of weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was failing psychologically, spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
socially. Just
Mm-hmm.
everything was downhill for me there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular event is what one of the things that sparked my interest in human suffering. Right? Because right now,
Okay.
I work in the area of human suffering, helping extremely
Right.
stressed people to deal with their stress. But that interest,
Right.
this is one of the things that sparked it. And
Right.
eventually, I was able to develop tools, a tool that I could use
Mm-hmm.
to deal with my stress, and a tool that would enable me
Right.
to become better at handling my thoughts and emotions. And now I'm on a mission
Right.
to share these methods with every human being on the planet.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, it's treacherous to imagine what you've gone through, but thank God you survived it and are on a better on a mission now to help people. And at that time, were there no people who tried to help you? Didn't it work out in that way that someone tried to help you, or did you not have any friends in California? What was the social scene like?
Mm. Okay, I had a few friends, but it was friends at my
Mm-hmm.
school. So, I mean, these were
Okay.
like super intelligent guys, and I
Okay.
always felt like I was stupid compared to them. So,
Okay.
I didn't want to tell them how much I was struggling because I thought because I mean, they thought I was smart, right? But I felt I was
Right.
stupid. So I didn't want
Okay.
to change their perception of me. I wanted to keep them thinking that I'm
Right.
just great, everything's perfect. I'm just a genius like
Right.
they are. Right? So I didn't want to share
Right.
my struggles with them. Uh, and
Right.
then there were other support structures at the university. It was really a great university. This is one I think of the
Right.
beauties
Right.
of studying in the US. Very supportive
Mm-hmm.
environment to like university students. My university had
Okay.
tremendous resources to help me. There was
Right.
a psychologist that I could visit. There were professors I could
Mm-hmm.
talk to. There was a mental
Mm-hmm.
health counseling center I could go to. So I had parents
Right.
who would have listened to me, but I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
disappoint them also. So I decided to keep things inside of myself, right?
Okay.
So I mean, I had support structures, but I didn't take
Right.
advantage of them, right?
Okay. 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 Because like you said, you thought that you were not just disappointing yourself or your parents, but you were disappointing a whole lot of people. This is what you kept
Yep.
telling yourself.
Yeah, the
Right.
feeling
Right. Right.
was, look, I'm like, this is such a prestigious school. The students are so
Right.
intelligent. They must have made a
Right.
mistake to admit me. You know, I don't belong here, man.
Okay.
Like, sooner or later, they're gonna
Right.
find out that I don't belong here.
Okay. Okay.
So this is one of
Okay.
the major fears.
Right. 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 Just a few questions about the story that uh, like just to clarify that your parents were well off, like they were well to do because you could afford education in all these places.
Well, they weren't well to do. That's again the thing about university in the U.S. is there's scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
and there's lots
Okay.
of scholarships for international students, especially students from Africa.
Okay.
So what I
Okay.
happened to do was I managed to apply and got a lot of what they call financial aid. So I got a lot
Okay.
of
Okay.
financial aid that they paid most of my school fees, and then my parents were able to pay the rest.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But
But in
by
Africa,
the
but
so
in
by
Africa,
Amer
it was
no
affordable.
yeah
In
well
Africa, it
no
was
U.S.
affordable.
universities in Africa are not afford U.S. universities I think I'd say are not affordable by most Africans, right? So like the university I
Right.
went to, Harvey Mudd, per year we
Mm-hmm.
paid maybe around it must have gone up by now, but let's say 60,000 US dollars a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for most Africans, this is not affordable, right? To put it into context,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
like if you live in a place like, let's say, Uganda, in a place like Uganda, if you're earning, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, $1,000 a month, you're doing well. You know, you could
Mm-hmm.
have a wife and a family to support with
Okay.
$1,000 a month. This
Right.
university,
Right.
that means most people don't make $1,000 a month in Uganda, right? But the university
Right.
in the U.S.
Right.
was what, $68,000, right? So you could see,
Right. Right.
not affordable at all for most
Right.
Africans.
Right.
But the
Right.
Americans have
Right.
good financial aid, so I got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
financial aid. But of course, it's true
Mm-hmm.
by the standards of by every rich varies depending on where you live. For example,
Right. Right.
the middle class American is
Mm-hmm.
middle class in America. If you take him
Right.
to several African countries, the guy is rich, right? So,
Right.
like I remember
Right.
when I was a kid, if you had a car, you were
Mm-hmm.
rich. Now,
Right.
most middle class Americans have cars. High school students have cars, but they don't
Right.
consider
Right.
themselves to
Right.
be rich. You see what I mean? So
Right. Right. Right.
by the standards of our community, yes. So I come from a wealthy background.
R-
That's my parents are well to
right.
do by the standards of our community. Yeah.
Right. 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 Because do most people in your community, are they able to afford education?
Yes. Not education in the United States, but education, yeah, around, yeah, sure. Um,
Means in Africa, they in the African continent they can afford education.
yeah, or in their countries, right? But schools vary. There's
Right.
different quality of schools. There's public
Right.
schools,
Right.
which are government schools, which are
Right.
very cheap. Those are the ones that are usually the
Right.
worst quality schools
Right. Right.
because they're free or near free.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's
Mm-hmm.
private schools. Those
Mm-hmm.
are more expensive, but they have better quality
Mm-hmm.
education. So my parents
Okay.
always did
Okay.
their best to ensure that I was in a private school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you have siblings too?
One big brother. Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. 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 So, that's the story. Very nice. So now you can take us ahead and tell us about your method, your observational method, which you happen to create.
Okay. So so I mentioned something that used to happen a lot in my childhood, right? I'd get intense emotions. Someone would say something
Mm-hmm.
that makes me feel angry. I get very angry, and I didn't know what to do with the
Mm-hmm.
anger. Or let's say
Mm-hmm.
when I was in university sometimes, let's say in the morning
Mm-hmm.
I go to class, I'm attending a lecture with a professor, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the class, okay, it can be something really minor, minor, not minor to me at the time, but let's say
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a math lecture, the professor is teaching what? Let's abstract algebra, okay, and
Okay.
then it's
Okay.
abstract algebra lecture, and then the professor asks a question to the class,
Mm-hmm.
and then I raise
Mm-hmm.
my hand and answer it, right? But then the
Mm-hmm.
answer is wrong, right?
Okay.
This happened, let's say 8 a.m. in the morning. right? Now I'd
Okay.
feel really stupid. I'm like, oh man, why did I do that? This is terrible, right? I'm dumb. I can't
Mm-hmm.
do this stuff, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
thought is
Mm-hmm.
gonna, if that thought, let's say it's 8 a.m., if that thought and feeling
Mm-hmm.
lasts for 30 minutes and then I'm able to go on with the rest of my day, that's good. But that never happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Usually,
Mm-hmm.
that event is gonna be playing on my mind and affect my decisions for the entire day. So
Oh.
when I go to lunch later the same day, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying. I don't want to speak to anybody because I'm afraid I might say
Okay.
something dumb, right? Over something that
Okay.
happened way early in the morning. I never moved on from it. Whereas if
Oh,
you
okay.
observe a child, what? Hello?
Right. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Clear. It's clear.
So
Yes,
if
yes.
you right, if you observe a child, for example, children are different. If
Mm-hmm.
you annoy a child right now, or you make a child
Mm-hmm.
sad, after
Mm-hmm.
maybe 30 minutes, he's forgotten about it. He's thinking about something else. He's
Right.
busy playing or doing something else. This is how we used to be
Right.
when we were smaller. But then when we
Right.
grew up, our minds were so developed and our memory became so strong that we can hold on to
Mm-hmm.
hurt and pain for like a week.
Right.
So there was one particular occasion where I got into an argument. I got into an argument with the maid. Right, the maid cleans
Mm-hmm.
the house. She wasn't doing something right. At least I felt she
Okay.
wasn't doing it right. So I talked to her very harshly in a very angry tone. In fact, she broke down in
Right.
tears, crying. And
Okay.
I was, I mean, the idea occurred to me to just sit down and observe this
Uh-huh.
anger because I didn't really like the feeling. So I sat down
Right.
on a sofa, closed
Right.
my eyes, and just observed the
Mm-hmm.
anger. And then there were thoughts running through my
Okay.
head like, no, yeah, she shouldn't do that. What she talking about what she should have done or what I should have said.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts were saying I shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have done it. Other thoughts were saying I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be thinking about her in this way. Others saying it's my fault. There were all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of thoughts in my head. Before, what I would do
Right.
is I'd just join in into the thinking,
Right.
participate even more, think about what I should
Right.
have said consciously. Instead, what I did
Right.
was to not take any of those thoughts seriously, so just let them happen. I observed the
Mm-hmm.
thoughts that were running in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I observed what was happening in my body, right? So the anger,
Mm-hmm.
when sometimes when you're angry, you can feel it on the corner of your nose. It's like a cringing on the corner of your nose. I could feel that.
Right.
I could feel my body
Right.
contracting. I could feel my
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat increasing. I could
Mm-hmm.
uh, I could feel my heart, in fact, was contracting. My chest was contracting. And I realized
Right.
the thought came to me was that this is actually killing me. Forget about this
Okay.
anger or emotion being bad for the maid or the person I talked to. Just for
Right.
myself, it's terrible. It's killing me. And what I noticed, I
Right.
sat there maybe for an hour or 2 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
this intense anger dissolved. So that after 2 hours,
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily feeling excited, but the anger
Mm-hmm.
had gone down tremendously to where I was able to think
Mm-hmm.
straight and act straight again.
Okay.
And I tried it several
Okay.
times later with the same
Mm-hmm.
effect. One thing I was able to learn was that it doesn't matter what the emotion is that I'm feeling: embarrassment, fear, sadness, anger, frustration,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. I realized that if I just sat down and observed it, eventually the
Mm-hmm.
emotion would subside, the feeling would subside. So
Okay.
over time, I was able to refine this to where maybe, uh, I mean, sometimes 10 minutes is enough to recover from a painful event.
Right.
So that I
Right.
was able to, via observation, I was able
Mm-hmm.
to get a tool that could help me to become, in a sense, like a child. You annoy me
Mm-hmm.
now, 30 minutes later, I'm no longer angry. I'm actually joyful, cracking jokes, that sort of thing. Right? And so this was
Right.
very powerful. And of course, I learned many
Right.
things out of it. Right? And because
Right.
of this approach of observing my
Mm-hmm.
emotional state and the pain, man, everything changed. My relationships changed. Everything just transformed.
Wow. So it happened just by not doing anything, just by and
Yes. So that's the thing, right?
sitting
You'd think,
and
if it looks kind of foolish for like a very logical mind. What are you saying? I just sit down and I mean, you're not even saying that I should reflect. I should think about my life.
Mhm,
I should find a solution. You're not saying
mhm.
any of it. You're just saying just sit down and let it happen. What kind of solution is that?
Right,
Like, to the logical mind, it seems
right,
very stupid. But
right.
the reality is, when I did it, it enabled me to
Mhm.
do things I was never able to do before. Now I had a tool.
Okay.
Whatever you do to me,
Right,
I know that I have a tool that I can use to recover. If you
right.
embarrass me, make me feel small, I have a tool by which
Mhm.
I can recover. In a few minutes,
Right,
maybe an hour, I'll be back.
right,
I'll be back to normal, right?
right, right,
And all I did
right.
was look, just observe. And here's the power, really. Why is observation such a powerful tool? Right? Because you think you're just sitting and doing nothing. Right? But here's the thing,
Right.
and this is the remarkable thing about being one of the remarkable things about the human being is that
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what it is. If you observe it,
Mhm.
you'll understand how it works better, and then you'll have more control over it. One example
Okay.
I like to use is,
Mhm.
I mean, imagine that you've never seen a car before. A car is just new. You've never seen a car before. So the
Okay.
first, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Okay. Okay. Okay.
the first time you look at the car, it's a strange object. It makes loud noises. It's moving really quickly. It could knock and kill
Mhm.
you. You don't even know how it's
Mhm.
moving. Obviously, the car is going to be
Mhm.
very stressful. Being next to the car is going to be stressful because you know nothing about it, right? It's just everything about it
Mhm.
is strange and scary. But here's the thing.
Right.
If you spend some time to observe the car, and let's say you just learn
Mhm.
one thing. If you just learn that the car moves straight and backwards, never sideways. If you know that one piece of
Mhm.
information, suddenly you have more control over the situation. Because it means that at least you know,
Mhm.
if I stand sideways on the side of the car, it's not going to hit me. See, now you have more control.
Right.
Right? This is true
Right.
with your thoughts and emotions also. Your stress and pain and
Right.
suffering comes from your thoughts and emotions. If when
Mhm.
you sit down and observe your thoughts and emotions, you begin to understand how your thoughts and emotions work. Not by doing anything, just
Mhm.
observing them. This increased
Right.
understanding makes you better able to handle your thoughts and emotions. So you're less stressed and less likely to have your emotional state disturbed by external things. And this increases
Okay.
your capacity to use your thoughts and emotions. So obviously you're going to become a
Okay.
better student, better relationships, better business, better at everything that you're doing.
Right.
Because you understand better how your thoughts and emotions work because you observed them.
Okay. Okay. I have a
Yes.
question. So while we're doing this, is there are there some pointers or guidelines which tell us that okay, this is working the right way? Because uh, like you said, it's just about sitting with yourself, and for you, you sort of had some feeling that hey, this is going the right way and it's solving problems. But for someone who tries it for the first time or the first few times,
Mm.
who doesn't know whether it's going right or wrong, how does he know that okay, if these sort of things kind of happen, means he's on the right path and he'll figure it out? So are there any guidelines or pointers during this exercise that can indicate that you're doing it in the right direction, like you're doing the right thing?
Mm. So, I mean, the guideline is obviously, so sometimes if you try something once it might not work. I'm not saying this method,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes you have to try something consistently to see. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of guidelines, how do you know it's working? Well, you just look at how do you feel. Are you feeling better?
Okay.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
What about your relationships? Are people
Mm-hmm.
around you more joyful? Things like that. However, here's a simple one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
forget about turning it into a practice, daily, whatever. Forget about that for the time being. Just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, throughout the day, you fluctuate in your emotional states. So there's
Right.
moments when you're excited, afraid, angry, sad, overwhelmed. There's all sorts of emotional states you get into and out of during the day.
Right.
Now, one thing is next time you get into an emotional state you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
someone said something to you and you're feeling embarrassed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just try to
Mm-hmm.
sit down, close your back straight to be as alert as
Mm-hmm.
possible, eyes closed to shut out
Mm-hmm.
distraction, sit comfortably and
Mm-hmm.
do nothing. Just sit there
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
find out if this feeling lasts forever, right?
Okay.
So just doing what you realize is that the intensity of the emotion goes down if you just sit there and do nothing and just observe it.
Okay.
The intensity of the emotion goes down. So already
Mm-hmm.
you have a tool, at least you can know
Mm-hmm.
immediately if it works by seeing whether I sat here and just let the embarrassment, let the feelings and the thoughts run around in my head. I just sat here and
Mm-hmm.
then see if,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and you'll notice that after a while just of sitting there, the emotions will become less intense, right? The feeling will go
Mm-hmm.
down. That's already an immediate
Right.
benefit. You'll know then that it's
Right.
working.
Right. Right. But does the question of escapism come into the picture, like wanting to immediately flee the situation? Like I don't want to face these thoughts that I am seeing. I want to do something else. I want to think about something else. I don't want to let these emotions which are so unsettling sink in. So what do I do about that?
Hmm. Yes. So this is in fact the major obstacle. Um,
Mhm.
is that somehow I don't know if we've been trained or whatever, but for example, the tendency is to avoid the problem. We don't like looking at problems
Yes.
because they're uncomfortable.
Yes.
We avoid them. That's what we do. It's like
Yes.
my mom just said that what he's disappointed. My mom just says that I don't know. It could be any reason. Like let's say I've decided that I want to be a photographer, and my
Mhm.
dad just said that's a stupid career. Okay,
Mhm.
so now
Mhm.
I'm feeling bad about it. Right?
Mhm.
The way we usually operate in that situation is to do as quickly as possible, try to stop that feeling by distracting myself. It
Mhm.
could be like, look, it could be, I don't know, watch pornography. It's a good distraction.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
it could be watch a movie, talk to friends, think about something positive.
Mhm.
All of this is escape.
Mhm.
The only problem with
Right.
this is that if you operate in this way, you never look at the
Mhm.
problem, right? And because you're
Right.
not looking at the
Right.
problem, it's gonna come back again to you. Like you'll always be affected by the
Okay.
comments that your father says.
Wow.
Right,
Yes. Yes.
right.
Yes. Yes.
So basically, you can spend an entire lifetime without ever having understood anything about how your thoughts and emotions function, right? Because when your
Mhm.
father tells you that your career is stupid, you may think that it's
Mhm.
your father's statement that's making you unhappy. But
Mhm.
if you look closely, you'll realize that the unhappiness is generated from within you. It's your own thinking
Okay.
that is making you unhappy. For example, your father says,
Right.
okay, you have a stupid career. If you think to
Mhm.
yourself, he shouldn't say that, or he's such a mean person,
Mhm.
that thought is what's
Mhm.
making you sad. It's not really what your father said. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. Yes. Yes. It does. It does.
So,
It does.
well, and it's not that you're willingly making yourself sad, it's just that you don't know how
Mhm.
to keep yourself happy. Right? So because if
Right.
I asked you to choose, Tushar, do you want to be
Mm-hmm.
joyful or miserable? What are you going to pick?
Mm-hmm. Joyful.
Joyful. It's obvious, right? I mean, I haven't met anyone who wants
Right.
to be miserable. And yet there's
Right.
a lot of miserable people. The reason they're
Yes.
miserable is not by choice. It's just that they don't know how to be
Yes.
happy. That's all, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
if you don't know how to be happy and you're miserable, well, first of all, understand why
Mm-hmm.
am I miserable? Let me observe my
Yes.
misery. When I observe my
Yes.
misery, I'll understand how I'm generating it. This will make me
Right.
less miserable. It will also make me
Right.
have better control over my own thoughts and emotions. So that next time when my father tells
Understood.
me again something that I don't like, it won't affect me as much because I can already catch my thoughts and emotions and how they're coming into play into creating my sadness. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that can only happen if you observe the problem. Right. The
Right.
solution is contained in the problem. If you escape the
Okay.
problem, it's going to be unlikely that you'll ever find the solution. If you don't want to
Right.
observe the sadness, how the heck are you going to understand the sadness and be able to get rid of it? You see?
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Very interesting. Because while we are trying to escape, we are all thinking about the fact that I don't want to feel bad. But what we are doing through observation is seeing that, like, kind of allowing ourselves to feel bad, to understand why we are feeling
Hmm.
bad. And through that, we are gaining more understanding about what are the reasons that make us feel bad, and then we learn more about ourselves, right? And we get to see what makes us feel bad. But in this, what, like, we keep understanding ourselves more and more. Is that it? Like, is that one of the uh, benefits of observing something like this?
Well, so I mean, I'm not going to say that understanding myself. Right? I don't know who I am. That's the truth. Everything I
Right.
think I am is stuff that's made up. Right? I am
Right.
not Christian Modjaiso. That's just my name. Someone made up that name and gave it to
Right.
me. It's not who I am.
Right.
I can say that
Right.
I'm an entrepreneur. No, that's just a
Right.
concept I made up. Right? So
Right.
none of the stuff I make up is me. This is obvious.
Right.
So I don't know who I
Right.
am and I don't even know what it means to understand myself. But I
Okay.
actually don't need to know that stuff in order to
Mm-hmm.
function. Right? It's not necessary to
Right.
have a definition of who I am or to create a me so that I can function without it. So
Right.
when we're talking about observing, let's say, your sadness,
Mm-hmm.
we're not necessarily talking about understanding yourself. We're just talking about understanding
Okay.
sadness and how it happens within you. This is all.
Right.
If you understand sadness
Right.
and how it happens within you,
Right.
even if you don't understand it totally, every
Mm-hmm.
bit of understanding makes you more capable of
Mm-hmm.
handling sadness when it comes. This is the beauty of
Okay.
it is you don't need to understand something totally. Like
Right.
the example of the car we're talking about. We
Mm-hmm.
just said there are many things to understand about a car. The more you understand
Mm-hmm.
those things, the better
Mm-hmm.
you are at handling the situation, or you're more at ease when you're next to the car because you understand how it works.
Right.
But you don't need to understand
Right.
everything. Even if you just
Right.
understand that the car runs on tires, if you understand that the car
Right.
needs tires to run, just that one
Mm-hmm.
piece of information already gives you some greater control. For instance, if you want
Okay.
to stop the car from ever knocking you, you just go and slash the tire.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know it can't move. You're
Mm-hmm.
safe. See what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
This is the same with
Right.
sadness. Every time you observe it,
Okay.
you learn something.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes you,
Mm-hmm.
now you have more control over situations that would make you sad before. And over time,
Right.
over time, amazing things happen. For instance, in my case, I was able to anticipate that an event is going to make me angry.
Hello,
Hello,
Christian?
can you hear me?
Oops.
Hello? Yeah?
Christian? Yeah, yeah, just lost you for a second. Go
Okay,
on.
sorry.
In your
Did I break
case?
out?
Yes, yes. For a
Okay,
second, just continue from in your
all right.
case.
So if it breaks out
Yeah.
again, just let me know and maybe I'll switch my connection.
No, no, no. It's
Okay.
good. It happened just once.
So
Mm-hmm.
what I was saying, right? So in my case, as a result, at first
Mm-hmm.
I was very angry and I was just observing my anger.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
after a while, the anger would dissolve, right? After like an hour, maybe to a few minutes, sometimes the anger would dissolve and I'd be able to function. But over time, the more
Mm-hmm.
I observed my anger, I learned all sorts of things. For example, I was able to predict when an event will make me angry. Before it
Okay.
happens, I know, look, this kind of event is gonna
Okay.
likely to make me to cause me to generate anger. So I can predict it.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
also, when the event happens, I was able to notice
Mm-hmm.
before the anger arises. So I was able to see anger arising. Right? It
Okay.
takes time to get angry, by the way. I don't know if you just pay attention, you'll realize it takes time to become sad. You don't become sad automatically. It's a process. You don't become
Right.
angry
Right.
automatically. It's a process. If you're very
Right.
aware, you
Right.
can notice anger before it happens. And this
Okay.
gives you tremendous control, right?
Wow.
All this
Okay.
happens if you
Okay.
look at it. If you escape,
Right.
right, through watching pornography, talking about it with other people, watching
Mm-hmm.
movies, distracting yourself with
Mm-hmm.
video games. If you do this,
Mm-hmm.
you never learn anything about your sadness, which means that you're always going
Right.
to be sad.
Right. Right. So, a key point I've taken from here is that we are generating our emotions even though it doesn't feel like that. It feels like they've just been thrown at us and now we have to deal with it.
Mm.
But what what is being suggested, what you're suggesting is that we are actually generating the emotions, and if we try to observe the process, we also get to know where they're getting generated from,
Mm-hmm.
what occurs because of which we start feeling the way we feel.
Yep. Yep. And I'm
Awesome,
not
awesome.
saying don't believe me about this. You don't need. I don't want you to even believe me or just because I said it.
Yes,
Just pay
right,
attention
right,
to any emotion you have and ask yourself,
right.
is this coming from outside or is it coming from me?
Mm-hmm. Right, right, right. I have one last question.
Hmm.
Uh, and before we get towards the end of the podcast, so this question is, while doing this, what is coming to my mind is if I am trying to understand sadness and maybe reflect upon it, or if I am trying to understand maybe some aggressive behavior of mine, or some thoughts which I don't know how to deal with, I feel that the more I understand, the more such thoughts will come. So there's an endless sea of trying to understand these thoughts or observing these thoughts. So how it if they're just going to keep coming, how to deal with with the thought of it being overwhelming, and how to see it as if it's how to maybe live in the present moment, or some, because I feel that this is definitely not the end of understanding such thoughts.
Hmm.
So how to think about the concept in this way means to keep moving on and not worrying about the future.
Hmm. Okay. So I hear you talking about stuff
Yes,
about the present, living in the present. So,
yes, yes,
I
yes,
mean, I'm not
yes.
recommending that you live in the present, right? In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you what
Mm-hmm.
to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the observe approach is not about being told what to do or how to act.
Mm-hmm.
Live in the present. Don't think about the future.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think about the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's something more
Mm-hmm.
subtle. This thought in your head that
Okay.
tells you live in the moment, even that has to be observed,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right?
Okay.
So,
Right.
yeah. Uh, No, really, the reality
Interesting.
is when it comes to your emotional states, look, when it comes to driving a car, maybe it's useful for someone to
Mm-hmm.
tell you how to drive a car, okay? But when
Right.
it comes to your
Right.
own inner states, your own emotional states,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really
Mm-hmm.
need anyone to tell you anything, right? What I'm
Right.
suggesting is
Right.
instead
Mm-hmm.
of believing something like, hey, live in the present,
Mm-hmm.
forget about the future,
Mm-hmm.
don't focus on the past,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
don't think, have a what's empty mind. These are no need
Right.
to follow any of this stuff. Just
Right.
just sit and observe the emotions and the feelings that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Those emotions and feelings will tell you how to act. The
Right.
problem will tell you
Right.
what the solution is. Right? Right.
Right.
So, but if you just follow someone's recommendation, live in the present, that can create a lot of
Mm-hmm.
frustration, right? Because you're like, I'm supposed to be
Right.
in the present, but I'm thinking about the past, right? So, right. Even this, I'm supposed to be,
Right.
that also is observed. Let's see that, right?
Right.
And just,
Right.
you really,
Right.
it's
Right.
weird. There is nothing to do. Just let it happen.
Right.
Just let it unfold.
Right.
And when
Mm-hmm.
you observe this unfoldment, how it's happening, that observation
Mm-hmm.
alone tells you what to do or how to deal with those kinds of situations.
Right.
Nobody needs to tell you how to do it. And maybe after
Right.
observing, you might realize that I have to be in the present. You may. Or you might find your own way of dealing with it. Right? I found my own ways of
Right.
dealing with things without being told how to
Mm-hmm.
do it. Just by observing. The
Mm-hmm.
observation taught me how to act.
Right. Right.
Right? So, I mean, just perfect
Awesome.
example is this one. Like, I'd been told ever since I was a kid, be kind to others, right? Be kind
Mm-hmm.
to others, don't be angry. I was told all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
None of it ever worked. I was still angry and I was
Mm-hmm.
still unkind.
Mm-hmm.
But when I observed my anger, I realized forget about
Mm-hmm.
the other person. This anger is killing me. Physically, it's killing me.
Right.
Once I
Right.
observed that, I became kind to people automatically.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't have to follow any instructions from anybody. I just realized that the
Right.
only sane thing to do is to be kind. I wasn't
Right.
following a commandment, it was just the only option. And I learned that because I
Right.
observed my anger. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful how you've uh tried to give us what can you say, a glimpse, or it's like it's like it's like trying to conceptualize something that we haven't tried yet, but I am I can say this, that I have become willing to try it after speaking with you, and I hope that my listeners too have become open to this idea of trying it to maybe solve some of their problems, or to see the benefits it can reap, like it has done for you, for relationships, and for handling your emotions better, right?
Hmm.
And it's nice how over the past, in the last 25-30 minutes, we tried to cover the topic, and I feel we have done a pretty good job in uh, encapsulating most of this, right?
Yeah, we've gone really deep. That's the beauty of podcasts. We've gone really deep.
Wow.
But
I'm
ultimately,
so glad.
everything we've said is just a bunch of words, right? It's not the reality,
Yes.
right? So it's like someone now
That's true.
listens to what we said and then they go and decide to apply it. That's the beginning
Right.
of problems, right? Just
Right.
it's
Right.
about finding their own way. Just look at it and let the sadness or the emotions or your suffering, let your suffering tell you what needs to be done. That's
Beautiful.
all.
Christian, you also offer some help and services which you wanted to tell me and the listeners about.
Yeah, definitely. So this all depends. So, I mean, you could always contact me about these things. It depends on what you want. For
Right.
instance, if you have a
Right.
question and you want me to answer your question, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I don't know, you want to recommend that I speak somewhere or something like this on a podcast, You just go
Right.
to my
Right.
website, observe.host, and you click on contact.
Observe.
Observe.host. Will you be
Observe.
able to add the links in the show notes?
Yes, I will be.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yes.
So you just go to
Observe
observe.host,
dot host.
host, yeah, H
Okay.
O S T, observe.host,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then you click on contact, and there you can ask me
Okay.
questions and I'll be able to answer them. The other ways
Okay.
I can serve you is as follows. Like, if you've been listening to what I'm saying and you like the ideas that you
Mm-hmm.
hear, right, then I have
Mm-hmm.
and you want to learn more about them, then
Mm-hmm.
if you go to observe.host and you click on the
Mm-hmm.
observe approach, this will give you free
Okay.
and instant access to a very simple but powerful method that you can apply immediately to deal with any problem
Mm-hmm.
that is stressing you out. And then,
Okay.
right, so that's the other way. And then the third final way is this, like, if you're feeling extremely stressed and you feel
Mm-hmm.
that maybe your life sucks, right? Things are just going, but your life sucks. Then, for a
Mm-hmm.
limited time only, I'm offering a free My Life Sucks coaching session. Nice name, yeah?
Beautiful.
Yeah. In this coaching session, we'll get a crystal clear vision of the life you want. We'll figure out
Mm-hmm.
exactly what is making your life suck, and you leave the session
Right.
renewed, re energized, and confident in your ability to transform your life. So, to take advantage of this free coaching session, I do it
Mm-hmm.
online. You just go
Mm-hmm.
to observe.host and click on free
Mm-hmm.
coaching. But again, Tushar will be able
Okay.
to add the links to all of these free resources in the
Yes.
show notes.
Yes. 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 And you can definitely use his help in, like, if you tried it out for some time and you have more questions, or you want to reflect upon your process with Christian, who's been doing it for a while. So that'll be a great discussion between both of you, or through chat or through email. I'll also link up your email address. I can do that, right? I'll link up your email address too,
Well,
so
actually,
that
if they
they can
just go to
contact you via.
observe.host and click on contact, it will be sent to my email address.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay, great,
no
great,
need for
great.
the email.
So,
The contact page on my website will send an email
right,
directly to me.
right, right, right. So that'll be a huge benefit for them if they're trying to they're trying to what is this observe and recreate things that they want in their life. Beautiful, Christian, beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you for being on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure to host you, especially because I mean, it was firstly a wonderful topic, and secondly, you're my first African
Yep,
guest from the Democratic Republic of
that's
Congo.
right. That's where Bunya is.
That's where Bunia is. And just give us a glimpse of what's happening in your house, what's happening around right now, presently.
Ah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, it's Bunya. So Bunya is like it's a rural area that's quickly developing. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like there's
Okay.
like crazy construction going on, but it's also a rural area, right? Like more of like the
Okay.
countryside kind of thing. But that's just
Okay.
in Bunya where I live. So you can see a
Okay.
contrast of people who are living in like nice houses and people who are living in huts, right? It's
Right.
very community oriented. And if you want to
Okay.
get anything done, you have to like ask people, you know? It's not like in the US where
Okay.
you can survive with your phone. Your phone, you could look up anything on your phone, right? Just, yeah.
Right.
Or you go to the airport without talking to anybody, you know where the toilet is. So in Bunia, it's
Right.
not that way. In Congo in general, right? You want to get things done, you
Okay.
communicate, you talk to people, you ask them, where is the toilet? And then
Okay.
they'll tell you, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's that way. It's a very relaxed, a very like social place. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, we had election last year in Congo, so there was
Mm-hmm.
a bit of what uncertainty in the place, fear that violence
Mm-hmm.
might break out. So we had like a president who'd
Okay.
been in power for a long time, and then so
Right.
basically he was replaced by a new president. So
Right.
Yeah, that's a bit about Bunia. I mean, I'm currently here visiting my mother. Yeah, but I'll be
Okay.
traveling out. Yeah, I'll be traveling out of the country towards the end of this year. So maybe around September, October.
Okay. 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 Is that where you reside, or do you permanently reside with your parents, or
No, no.
with?
I'm just like I'm a what you could think of me as a nomad. Since I run an online
Okay.
business,
Okay.
right?
Right.
I'm a digital nomad.
Right.
So since I run an online business,
Right.
I can
Right.
live
Right.
anywhere, so long as there's a good internet
Oh, great.
connection.
So where are you heading next?
So the plan is to go to the US. I want to
Mm-hmm.
attend an inner engineering program. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
inner with Sadhguru.
Is
I don't know
this
if you know.
Mind
Yeah,
Valley? Is this Sadhguru?
yeah,
Okay, he's from
yeah. I
India.
know. I love that guy. So I'm attending one of his programs. Yeah, and then I'll
Okay,
jump off to
so
Colombia.
nice.
So that's the plan.
Oh,
So I
wow.
don't live anywhere. I
Awesome.
live everywhere. The planet
Right.
is my
I
home.
want
All
to be
right.
updated.
Maybe I'll like one day. Don't be
Definitely.
surprised if you find me in Delhi somewhere. So I live everywhere, man.
Sure, man. You'll be my guest. I stay in Bangalore, by the way. This
Bangalore.
is in the
Okay.
south of India.
So if I drop by
Yes,
Bangalore,
yes.
I'll shoot you an email and then we meet up.
Of course, of course. And I also wanted to let you know about my new. This is also for the audience that I have a new podcast coming out called The Education
Hmm.
Theory. Currently, it's only on SoundCloud, and that is going to be discussing about the education system and the challenges for the students and the people who are trying to help the education system. So I also felt that your method could really help students. So students who are facing exam anxiety, or who are facing parental pressures to choose the right career, or who are facing all sorts of things. But since that podcast has just started, we have not I have not kind of laid down the series of topics that I want to cover, but I'm sure that this will come up. So when that comes up, I will get back to you so we can have you on that podcast too and target those specific
Yeah,
topics.
man. I really love talking to you, man. You're fun to talk to. So yes, yeah. So definitely, I'll be happy to come over and
Thank you so much.
serve in any way I can.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So that's it for today, Christian. It has been wonderful.
Yeah.
It has been absolutely wonderful. Don't log off. We'll chat for it. We'll chat for 2 more minutes, but I'll just wave my audience goodbye by telling them that you can catch this podcast on all the major podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple, iTunes. Please hear it on Radio Public, because through that, even though it's free for you, I get paid per listen, and that helps me on this mission. So, and it's a pretty good platform too. So, you could go ahead and try it on Radio Public. Then you could try it on Castbox. You can try it on uh, basically any podcasting platform. The Education Theory, which is my new podcast, is going to be only on SoundCloud for some time, and then I'll bring it on the other platforms subsequently. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast with Christian and me, and I hope to see you again on the next podcast, and also on the podcast with Christian in the Education Theory. So take care till then, and a final goodbye from Christian.
Bye, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much, Christian,
Yep.
and we are signing off.